the wound's still a bit fresh. A month ago, my wife of 22 years tragically died in a car crash. Cynthia was one of those drivers that love to stare into her phone, and unfortunately this bad habit caught up with her in the last week of January. I was pretty devastated when the police showed up at my door and told me she had a fatal accident, and I wanted to honor her somehow. At the time of the accident, I had no idea she was having an affair. The last 4 or 5 months I did notice she was pulling away and our intimacy decreased, but I thought this was just something that happened to couples after 20 years, so I didn't pay much mind to it. But, at least from what she told me, Cynthia started to get into writing. She was constantly on her laptop, typing away at all hours. She told me she was working on a fantasy book, hopefully the first of a series. When I asked more, she said it was about a fantasy world where a super advanced human race appears and interacts with orcs and elves and magic with laser guns and high tech. It sounded very cool, and Cynthia promised as soon as she had a first draft she liked, she would let me read it. I decided to honor her by getting the draft of her book and hiring a writer to clean it up and publish it with a novelty press. I got on her laptop and no book, no sign at all. I opened her Chrome, thinking she might have written it in Google Drive, and saw a bunch of pin tabs. One was a Facebook Messenger tab, with a ton of her messages with a man, John. I have no idea who John is, never met him, but they talked about meeting up, exchanged photos, everything. The last message John sent her was 2 days before Cynthia's accident, the two saying they loved each other, and him saying he was going on a business trip to Germany. The messages between Cynthia and John has shown they had met up at the house more than once, so I already had the locks changed. Not sure if John is back yet, and frankly don't care if he is. I was thoroughly devastated. She did have a Google Drive tab, but in her drive wasn't a book about elves versus Vulcans, but a shared document with John. The document was a plan her and John drafted on how to divorce me, turn the kids against me, and take our home and as much money as possible. One thing she noted was she has been taking money, a few hundred a month, and putting it in a separate account. I got the bank thing sorted out, and the money in the kids' college account. I've also been going to therapy twice a week now. It is hard to be mad at someone dead, especially someone everyone else in your life is grieving and praising as a wonderful wife and mother. I have asked my therapist if I should tell my kids about what Cynthia has done and what she was planning to do. My therapist cautioned me about this. He said that they just lost their mother, and being told this would be condemning her memory. Damnatio memory. Maybe now is not the time, but I think eventually would be a time for my kids to know. Update. Some things have happened since last time. To answer some questions, I have gone to the bank and got control of Cynthia's account, and transferred the money into a savings account for the kids. Also, my kids already suspected. Tuesday night, my eldest Michelle said her and my son Jason had something to say to me. They sat me down in the living room and Michelle said, "We think Mom was cheating on you." They both said they weren't sure, but it was eating them up seeing me in extreme grief the past month, and they thought I should hear what they suspect. They brought up how Cynthia was always away, and when she was at home, she would say strange observations about me. Stuff like, "Isn't it weird your dad's working late this week?" This is one of those seeds Cynthia mentioned in her document that she wanted to plant in the kids. Michelle said her suspicions went high the week before the accident, when she got home from school and saw a strange jacket on the coat hook by the front door. It wasn't any jacket Jason or I had, so she was very suspicious about it. I told both my kids that I didn't tell them, but I found evidence on their mom's computer. When I was looking for the book she said she was writing. Michelle wanted to see the evidence, but Jason said he doesn't want to think or talk about Mom for a while. I shared the info with Michelle, after she insisted she already suspected her mom and was ready for it. It feels good to now have someone close that can talk to me about this beyond my therapist. Yesterday afternoon, I was home alone when I heard someone jiggling the back door's knob. I went to the door and saw a man I never saw before trying to use a key on the lock. I told him to step back from the door and he almost jumped. I opened the door a crack and asked him who he was and what he was doing in my backyard. It was John, Cynthia's affair partner. He told me that he worked with my wife, and he just got back from a trip and saw Cynthia died on social media, and him and Cynthia were starting a business. They had a business bank account with his investment money in the business, and he was wondering if I could help him get the business funds transferred over. I looked him straight in the eye and said I was at the bank and Cynthia didn't have an extra business account, and I had no idea what he was talking about. John also said that he wanted to check my wife's things for any sensitive business documents. I said he was a stranger and wasn't welcome in my home, especially since he tried to enter without permission. John looked defeated but did suggest he would consult with a lawyer about his sensitive business documents and business funds. In Cynthia and John's master plan, one of their ideas to alienate my children from me was to create a narrative of me cheating. They put screenshots of various escorts from some sort of website in the document, saying they could easily pay one to claim I was sleeping with her. Cynthia picked a rather large woman who looked like she had some rough years and seemed gleeful in the idea of making the children think I slept with that woman over her. Surprise! Sunday night, who was knocking at the door but that woman? She immediately tried to cause a scene, and tried to make the adulterous claims, but I simply said, "Did John last name send you?" And she immediately left without a word. John called me later that night and said he wanted his investment money and he knew how to hurt me. I told him we were on a recorded line, a bluff, and he was silent before saying wrong number and hanging up.
Second story.
I am married to my wife for 11 years and together for 14. We have a beautiful 7-year-old daughter and our marriage has been great without any major problems until last year. Last year, I learned that my wife cheated on me before our marriage. One of her friends became religious and confessed her actions to me, which had me confront my wife. She was shocked that I learned it and apologized profusely about her actions. However, she said it's not something important now because we have been going strong and have a family together. She told me I should come to terms with it since it happened 4 months into being exclusive and she was a stupid girl out of college back then. My mind told me the same. It happened 14 years ago and we are happy right now. I decided to forgive her and continue our usual life. Reality was not that great. My mental took a big hit. I realized it's not something that happened 14 years ago for me. The cheating happened for me when my wife confirmed it. I was less confident, could not have sex with my wife. I just could not get an erection for her. This turned into feeling disgusted being around her. I even took a DNA and STD test secretly. Thankfully, our daughter is mine and I am clear of STD. Then a year of intense individual therapy started for me. I realized I needed to change somehow. I was not the same person I used to be. I also communicated my feelings to my wife and after pushing a bit, we started going couples counseling too. However, at the end of everything I decided to proceed with divorce. Here are my reasonings. She not only cheated back then but lied to me for 14 years. She did not confess the action herself. Even though she apologized, she dismissed the fact by saying it's not important anymore. Young me was robbed of having a choice. Cheating was and still is one of the biggest deal breakers for me. If I knew it back then, I would have broke it off. I am happy with my life and I am glad that our daughter came to world. She is the light that shines the brightest for me. One of the biggest reasons I keep living, but I still was robbed of a choice back then. IC and MC could not our problems and my feelings towards her. It also started affecting family life, which could affect our daughter. I think our daughter would be better off having us as co-parents instead of living in a broken family environment where consistent arguments are present. Sex life is basically dead for me. We do have sex, but I feel like those women on film series that just lay and look at the ceiling waiting it to be over. The only difference is that I am a man. I do not even want non-sexual gestures anymore. Last week, I had a sit-down with my wife and explained everything I wrote here in detail, my feelings, reasonings and some other private things. I have been talking to a lawyer for the last month and papers are almost finalized. 50-50 is custody, 50-50 is assets sharing and as amicable as possible. I explained everything thoroughly and clearly to her. She freaked out and had a panic attack. We spent the night at ER. She is begging me to reconsider and not throw away 14 years. However, even though I would like to stay, it will result in us being roommates and a broken family environment for our daughter. Am I in the wrong here? Update. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their ideas and input about my situation. Some people reached out to me on Reddit chat to state their opinions and we had long talks. They have been incredibly helpful and I want to thank them especially. Some people asked if we went to counseling together. Yes. We have been visiting a counselor for over a year now on top of my individual therapy. I understand blowing up a marriage for something happened 14 years ago is not logical. However, my feelings towards my wife got even worse after counseling and therapy. It started with not being able to trust her, converted to not wanting sex, then not wanting non-sexual gestures, and finally I am not even comfortable to be in the same space as her. We have been less than roommates in the last couple of months. I do not hate or resent her, but I just cannot shake off the feelings. I would say I forgave her, but it's not about forgiving anymore when there are no feelings in love. I do not want my daughter to grow up in such an environment. I know how hurtful it can be. I experienced a similar situation with my parents, only the genders reversed. Living in such an environment breaks you as a child and teen. I would have much preferred if my mother just divorced my dad instead of staying for my sake. These being said, I had a long talk with my wife this morning. She has not been eating much since visiting you and I am concerned for her well-being and safety. Some Redditors who reached out suggested considering separation before proceeding with a divorce and see if my feelings would change. That is very logical actually. I proposed this idea to my wife and she was happy to hear it. I have an upcoming business trip to Netherlands next week and I am planning to extend my stay and stay with my sister once I am back. Wife abruptly suggested one-sided open marriage and I can do what I want on that business trip if it'll save the relationship, make us even, and change my feelings. I rejected because it has nothing to do with that. Even if it changed something for me, it would devastate her knowing I cheated on her in the future. It's not something easy to get over and not an easy decision. That is all the update. We'll try separation for a while and depending on the result I'll make my decision.
Third story.
I have known my friend Matt since we started college. We're in the same program and have been roommates since day one. Overall, I'd say Matt is a great guy. However, he has a terrible tendency to cheat. Throughout college, I think Matt had 5-7 different girlfriends, and each of those relationships ended because he would cheat. Back in January, he started dating his current girlfriend Jen, F21. And has been with her far longer than any of the previous relationships. From my interactions with Jen, I know she's a wonderful person. She's very polite, beautiful, and clearly devoted to Matt. For the past few weeks, Matt has also developed a close relationship with his anatomy lab partner. It's become pretty clear to me and my other housemates Kyle M21, Robert M22, Omar M20, that there is some romantic relationship between them. We even all met Cindy as she came by our house a few times. Long story short, Matt has told me and the other guys that things between him and Cindy are moving fairly quickly and that Jen is completely in the dark about this. He told us that, for the foreseeable future, he'll be spending a few nights hanging out at Cindy's place. Here's the issue. Jen and her roommates don't live that far from us, about a 7-minute walk. So there's a good chance she'll come by looking for him, according to Matt. Therefore, he wants us all to make excuses for his absences and potentially reassure Jen that he isn't up to anything bad. Kyle and Robert are fully on board with this, as they consider it the bro code. Omar is fully against this, and while he has not said he'd tell Jen, he has refused to lie for Matt and has been urging him to end things with Cindy. I would say I'm more neutral. I don't think what Matt's doing is appropriate, but I don't think it's my place to tell Matt how to manage his relationships. I told him that while I wouldn't seek Jen out and tell her what's going on, I wouldn't lie to her either about where he is and instead say I don't know. Update. I'll start this update by saying Jen found out last night. Like Matt predicted, she came over to our house Tuesday evening. I saw her pretty quickly since I was also coming back from buying some food. She asked me if I knew where Matt was, and I said I didn't know because I genuinely didn't know at the time. She mentioned how he was and responding to her texts and that she was worried about him, and I felt pretty bad hearing that. Kyle, who were inside, came out at this point and said that Matt was in his anatomy lab and then reassured her that he'd contact her once he was finished. She didn't seem entirely satisfied with that answer but thanked us anyway and left. Once she was gone, Kyle told me that Matt was actually on a date with Cindy. Since Matt sometimes brings Cindy over, he'll text the house group chat before they come over to ensure that Jen isn't around. He did this on Tuesday night, and Kyle did alert him that Jen had stopped by looking for him, so he stayed over with Cindy on Tuesday night. Wednesday evening, only Omar and I are home. Kyle was with his own GF, and Robert had an exam. Around 7 p.m., we got a text on the group chat from Matt saying he plans on bringing Cindy over around 8:30, and he asked if Jen came by. I told him that I hadn't seen her, and things went on as usual. I'll add that Omar has refused to respond to these specific text messages from Matt, so there was an expectation on me to clarify if Jen was here or not. A little after 8 p.m., Jen comes by with one of her friends, Carly F21. They asked us where Matt was since Jen hadn't been seeing him a lot lately. Before I could even say anything, Omar told them to come back after 8:30, and Matt should be home. They left, and I did argue with Omar about his decision to tell them to come back since it was inevitably going to cause drama, but he didn't care. I did text Matt and told him about Jen potentially returning, but since he was driving, he didn't read the message. At this stage, I gave up trying to contact Matt and went up to my room. A little after 8:30, Matt walked in with Cindy, and not that long afterward, Jen and Carly returned. Omar let them in. Long story short, there was a lot of Jen yelling and Matt lying and apologizing. I didn't bother coming down since I could hear it all from my room. After about 10 minutes of this, Jen and Carly left. Matt sent Cindy home after this and was pretty pissed at what happened. I reminded him that I sent text messages which he now saw, and Omar played dumb, acting like he didn't see Matt's message about him asking if Jen was home but confirmed to him that he told Jen to come back after the first time she came because he didn't think Matt was dumb enough to go out with Cindy 2 nights back to back. Robert and Kyle came home after this point and I filled them in with what happened. There was definitely some tension in the house this morning as Matt thinks this all could have been avoided had Omar been more helpful. He also partially blames Cindy for wanting to come over so often. Overall, Matt does and really seemed to care that Jen found out and broke things off with him. He said that he'll try apologizing one more time as he does prefer Jen to Cindy, and if she does and accept, he'll leave things as they are. As for Cindy, Matt has already told Kyle, Robert, and me this morning that he plans on ending things with her after the December exam season. He says that he wants to be single again by New Year so he can have a fresh start. Kyle and Robert think this is pretty hilarious considering how much trouble he got into to be with her. Things have ended more smoothly than I thought and I have made it abundantly to Matt to keep me out of his relationship woes. I have also asked Carly how Jen was holding up this morning as we share a class together. As expected, Jen was very upset about the entire ordeal and she and her friends consider everyone at our house aside from Omar to be complicit and awful. Update: I've been receiving a lot of DMs from people wondering how things turned out after the big reveal, so here's a quick recap. Jen did not accept Matt's apology. She has indicated that she, in fact, never wants to see him again. Matt is still with Cindy, and he still plans on breaking up with her after exam season. According to him, Cindy is starting to feel pretty secure now that Matt is no longer with Jen and has expressed her desire to form a serious relationship with him. While he does feel a bit guilty, he thinks it's best for both of them that he ends things with her before New Year. Despite feeling guilty, Matt has attempted to reactivate his Tinder account, but Kyle made him take it down. Kyle thinks it's too soon for Matt to do this since someone we know is bound to see him there, and according to Kyle, Matt needs to play up the angle that he's heartbroken about falling out with Jen. Kyle has smoothed things over with his girlfriend by claiming he had no idea Matt was cheating. Robert backed him up on this and expressed that nobody aside from Matt knew. While I did plan on telling Carly the truth about what was going on, considering how quickly Matt, Kyle, and Robert have been moving, I opted against this. Instead, I've told Carly that I also did not know about Matt's cheating. Yes, it's a lie, but since I was against Matt cheating, I don't think it's fair for me to go down with the ship. considering that both Kyle and Robert are getting off relatively scot-free. Apparently, I was convincing enough, as Carly told me that while she herself doesn't think I'm so bad, Jen will need time to process what went down, so it's best to give her space. Again, I get it, ISM the most appropriate measure, but I really don't think I deserve to be in the splash zone. Omar has expressed his strong disappointment in all of us, but at this stage his voice has become ambient noise, according to Kyle. Since I fortunately visiting my parents this weekend, I get to be away from the drama and hopefully any potential fallout. Also, since it's relatively earlier, we'll have to wait and see if anything else happens. But I pray the worst is over. Update. For those wondering why I haven't posted another update, I was busy with exams. However, things have largely calmed down. Omar is doing alright. We're not ostracizing him or anything. All he has is bad exam anxiety despite consistently getting good marks. We went out to celebrate his birthday a few nights ago, and this did help us all de-stress. According to Carly, Jen is still very upset about what happened with Matt. However, fortunately, she's less depressed about it now and feels anger towards Matt more than anything else, according to Carly. As for Matt himself, he still claims to be on course to dump Cindy sometime in the near future, as he has remained adamant about being single by the new year. Matt and Kyle claim that it is fair considering the role that Cindy played in all of this, but I'm not so sure. Either way, I'll be staying out of whatever Matt has planned. Kyle has pretty successfully smoothed things over with his own GF. For a bit, it did look like she wanted to take a break from him since she did hear about him telling Jen that Matt was in his lab instead of with Cindy. She was suspicious, but he did reiterate to her that he had no idea Matt was cheating. Robert helped him with this, and they have successfully put the entire thing on Matt. Matt is okay with this as he does now admit some responsibility, but he only made this admission after Omar essentially had to spell it out for him. Aside from this, not much is happening since everyone is mainly focused on their exams. Update. So, there have been a few developments since my last post. Before you ask, no, I haven't told Kyle's girlfriend anything for obvious reasons. Firstly, I don't want to ruin my housing situation. Second, it'd be my word against Kyle's, Matt's, and Robert's, so she probably wouldn't believe what I have to say. Also, I've started seeing a new girl myself, and things are going smoothly. Snitching on Kyle would probably ruin that as well. I asked Omar privately if he was going to blow the whistle on Kyle, but he didn't give me a particularly straightforward answer. He's hard to read, so I don't know what he'll do. Kyle has begged him not to say anything, so we'll see how that holds. I'm guessing Omar has probably already told the girl he likes about the entire situation. They act like a married couple despite not really dating, so if he knows, she probably knows as well, which does put Kyle at some risk of being found out. But this is only speculation and not my problem. Matt's plan to dump Cindy and be single by the new year has completely fallen apart. As you may recall, Cindy is Matt's lab partner, and the anatomy class they're taking is a full-year course. As Omar so smugly pointed out, Matt wants the anatomy prof to write him a ref letter eventually, since he has done prior research with this prof and is doing well in his class, and if he were to have a conflict with his lab partner, that might spoil the letter. Omar has been throwing this constantly in Matt's face by saying things like how Matt needs to pretend to love Cindy even though he isn't capable of love, and how he can't be a hoe anymore because it will affect his academics. He says all this jokingly, but it is hilarious considering how worked up Matt gets. Jen and Carly are doing alright. I saw them before leaving campus the other day, and we spoke briefly. I've heard that Jen is starting to reconnect with her ex, the guy before Matt. Before you ask, she didn't cheat on this guy with Matt. She got with Matt a few months after she and the guy ended things. Hopefully, she finds happiness there. Since our winter break has started, we'll all be headed our separate ways for most of the break. I do plan on hanging out with the guys a few times, though for now, as much as I love tea, I need a break from their drama. Update. Unsurprisingly, Matt has cheated again on his newest GF, Cindy. I use the term GF loosely because realistically Matt only stayed with Cindy because he needed a recommendation letter from a certain prof and didn't want issues in the class he shared with her. Cindy was essentially a placeholder, and since Matt no longer needs that letter, lucky him, He's more or less done with her. He went on quite a tirade about how annoying and clingy she is and again mentioned how he still prefers his previous GF, Jen, to her. Matt revealed this information during a completely unrelated conversation to me, M21, and one of my other roommates, Omar, last night. The two of us had no idea this was going on, as Matt has been more secretive about whom he tells his relationship info since the last time he cheated. Our other roommate Kyle told us that he has known about Matt cheating on Cindy for almost 2 weeks now. He and Matt are besties. I'm not sure if our other roommate Robert, who wasn't here last night when we're having this chat, knows about Matt cheating yet again. I didn't bother asking Matt or Kyle if he knew. Of course, Cindy has no clue that Matt's been unfaithful, nor does Kyle's own GF, Olivia, know that Kyle's been essentially helping Matt cheat on Cindy. I kinda knew Olivia wouldn't know for obvious reasons, but I didn't want Kyle to confirm this with me. The only reason I got this confirmation was because Omar stupidly asked Kyle, does Olivia know? Realistically, Omar knew damn well that Olivia wouldn't know. She didn't know last time Kyle covered for Matt, but I guess he wanted to burden us with this information for whatever reason. Omar then asked Matt if he was going to break up with Cindy, and Matt only responded by saying eventually, yes. I asked Matt what he meant by this, and he clarified that he wanted to be done with Cindy by reading week, about 2 weeks away. For those wondering, I'm still here for 3 more months until my lease is up. Update: the second term at uni is finally starting to wrap up now. I had a few stressful midterms, but for the most part, things seem to be calming down a bit. I only have about 1.5 months left on my lease, and then I'll be able to leave all my roommate drama in the past, as this is our last year of undergrad. Just a few days ago, Matt told me and the other guys that he had finally dumped Cindy. It came a bit late, as I remember him saying something about being done with her by reading week, which ended on February 25th. He admitted that he kept her along partially for his lab class. Now only a few more lab sessions remain in the term, and most of them are independent work according to Matt. Supposedly, Cindy is distraught, though, since she knew about Matt's antics beforehand. I hope she had the foresight to mentally prepare for this outcome. At least she doesn't know she was cheated on. Since dumping Cindy, Matt has started seeing a new girl. So far he claims to like her, but since he's likely going to move this summer to attend med school, the relationship already has a predetermined expiry date. Omar asked him if the girl knew what she was signing up for, and Matt gave a lame answer about not knowing the future and how she might prefer this sort of arrangement. Omar was a bit annoyed by this and told Matt that he was behaving like an asshole. I agreed with Omar and told Matt that he was probably already lining up potential affair partners. He denied this and said that if things went well enough, he'd be open to trying a long-distance relationship, assuming he moves out of province. All of us called BS on this, even Kyle and Robert. Speaking of Kyle, he has still not told Olivia about how he's been helping Matt cheat. Olivia is pretty friendly with Omar's so-called future wife, Sarah, so maybe she tells Olivia. IDK. Kyle is worried about this outcome and asked Omar to help with damage control if this does happen. Omar has refused and claims he can't lie since he's fasting these days. He thinks that Kyle should just tell her, so that way she'll maybe appreciate the transparency. Robert warned Kyle against this and said that it would probably just create drama and stress for him. I've been telling my own GF some of what's been going on, and she has expressed to me several times that she doesn't like Matt or Kyle Lowell. Between all the papers she writes for her courses and prepping for the LSAT she'll be writing in the late summer, she's got enough to worry about. But she did tell me that she'd like me to be firmer with Matt, so I've been calling out his problematic behavior more often. The last thing I'll add is that Jenny's thankfully in a better place now. Carly told me that Jen started talking with a new guy a few weeks ago, so hopefully that works out well for her. Funnily enough, Matt knows this as well and seems bothered by it, but there isn't much he can do about it aside from coping, I guess.
Fourth story.
First things first, I have no plans to divorce my wife. I'm not so much seeking advice as I am just trying to vent, because this hurts like a motherfucker and I'm not sure to whom else I can turn to in order to get this off my chest. An old friend of my wife, whom we have not seen in years, reached out to me last night and emailed me screen caps of some email exchanges they had at the time that detailed a fling my wife had with the other man back while we were still dating long distance. She said she wanted to clear her conscience after all this time, but I was still skeptical at first. It took place in the 2 months leading up to me moving in with her. She definitely had sex with the guy at least once and they went on several dates. I logged into her email at about 2 a.m. this morning and verified that these emails were real, and I found some more emails she sent to another friend with more of her details and feelings. We both grown a lot since then. Our marriage has been truly great, but reading some of the shit she said back then just gutted me. She said she knew what she was doing was wrong, though she didn't necessarily feel guilt. She said that she loved the way I made her feel when we were together, but she got really lonely when I left, and that she had made up her mind to basically live like she was single for the 3 weeks each month that I was and there. Hell, she even kicked around the idea of breaking up with me to pursue a relationship with the other guy. Like I said, we currently have a great marriage and I have zero intention of pursuing a divorce. I'm not even sure I'm going to confront her about it because it was so long ago. That said, this has really punched me in the gut and I'm not sure I ever felt this kind of hurt. Thanks for listening to me and letting me vent. Reddit. First things first, I have no plans to divorce my wife. I'm not so much seeking advice as I am just trying to vent because this hurts like a motherfucker and I'm not sure to whom else I can turn to in order to get this off my chest. She said she knew what she was doing was wrong, though she didn't necessarily feel guilt. She said that she loved the way I made her feel when we were together, but she got really lonely when I left, and that she had made up her mind to basically live like she was single for the 3 weeks each month that I was and there. Hell, she even kicked around the idea of breaking up with me to pursue a relationship with the other guy. Like I said, we currently have a great marriage and I have zero intention of pursuing a divorce. I'm not even sure I'm going to confront her about it because it was so long ago. That said, this has really punched me in the gut and I'm not sure I ever felt this kind of hurt. Update. I got back home on Sunday after a weekend work meeting that was out of state. I asked her if we could talk, and I told her that I knew she had cheated on me. She held back tears as she confessed that she had, indeed, carried on a brief relationship with another man while we were dating, shortly before I had moved states and we had moved in together. I asked her if there were any other times, and she said no. I have faith in her when says this, because I gave no time frame and she corroborated what I had found. I then asked why she kept it from me for so long, and she said she knew how adamant I was that I would never forgive a cheater. I had also been cheated on in college by a longtime girlfriend, and she knew it would destroy both me and our relationship. She then asked for my forgiveness, if I could ever forgive her, and I told her that I already had. She cried even more when I told her that the last thing I want is a divorce, because I still love her more than anything in the world and I'm not willing to throw everything we have away for something that happened 16 years ago. I said that while I love her, I am still very hurt because all of this is new for me and my trust in her is a little shaken for having kept this from me for so long. She understood. She offered to let me go through her DM, her email, and her texts to prove nothing else had gone on. I declined, because I have known all of her passwords and how to unlock her phone, and she has never jealously guarded her devices. We can also track one another's devices and she has never been somewhere she shouldn't be when I have checked. Finally, I asked why. She said she didn't have a clear answer why and she still was and totally sure, but she was going through a very self-destructive time in her life. This was already known to me, and when this guy came pursuing her hard, it is one more terrible decision in a string of terrible life decisions she had made over the previous year. We embraced and cried. She apologized again, and I told her how much she meant to me. I told her it would take time for me to process all of this and that I would be going through counseling, and that I want us to attend marriage counseling for at least a little while, but that I was still madly in love with her. Then she asked me how I found out, and I told her about how her old friend had reached out to me and dropped the news, which caused me to check her emails and corroborate this information. Apparently they had a pretty serious falling out a while back after my wife had loaned the friend a good amount of money after the friend husband had took everything and left her high and dry. This money came from her discretionary account, not our shared account. Yes, we both have discretionary accounts. No, I do not worry about what she does with her own money. Yes, I knew about the loan. Instead of using the money to get back on her feet, her friend had used it for really expensive, unneeded stuff and a vacation with some other girlfriends. Needless to say, my wife was pissed. She asked for her money back, and it led to a big fight. They have barely spoken since, and this will probably officially end their relationship, as my wife thinks this could be payback for cutting off her friend. I have my first session with a new therapist later this week. We have a session with a marriage counselor next week. I'm hopeful that we will come through this ordeal just as strong as we were before. To those who offered me genuine advice, thank you. While I was not necessarily looking for advice when I first posted, there was some sage wisdom in some of your words and it really helped me. Thanks for listening everyone. If you enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Red Relationships to never miss a future upload.